What if an entire town disappeared in less than 15 minutes, and the tornado that destroyed it became the first EF5 ever recorded in history? On May 4, 2007, the quiet town of Greensburg, Kansas, was about to face a disaster unlike anything America had ever officially measured. By sunrise, 95% of the town would be gone, and the world would witness the first EF5 tornado ever rated on a brand new scale. At first, it looked like just another tornado outbreak in Kansas. Storm chasers watched a massive rotating storm growing on the horizon, while emergency officials warned residents to stay alert. But no one yet realized that this tornado would soon rewrite weather history forever. To understand why Greensburg became so historic, we have to go back a few months earlier. On February 1, 2007, the National Weather Service officially replaced the old Fujita scale with the brand new Enhanced Fujita Scale, or EF scale. Scientists believed the new system would measure tornado damage more accurately than ever before. Ironically, the highest category on this new scale had never been used. Experts hoped no tornado would ever become powerful enough to earn an EF5 rating. That hope lasted only 3 months. But Greensburg's story wasn't only about destruction. For over a century, this small Kansas town had been famous for something extraordinary: the Big Well. Dug entirely by hand in 1888, it reached 109 feet deep and 32 feet wide, becoming the world's largest hand-dug well and the town's greatest source of pride. Visitors traveled from across America to see it. Local businesses depended on tourism, families grew up around it, and generations proudly called Greensburg home. Life was peaceful, simple, and deeply connected to the town's history. Then came Friday, May 4, 2007. Temperatures climbed into the mid-80s as people finished work, children played outside, and families prepared for a quiet evening. Nothing seemed unusual across southwest Kansas. But high above the plains, the atmosphere was quietly building one of the most dangerous tornado environments of the entire year. Meteorologists at the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, had been watching the situation closely. Moist air from the Gulf of Mexico surged northward while a powerful upper-level trough pushed in from the west. At the same time, a dry line settled just west of Greensburg, the perfect setup for violent supercell thunderstorms. Weather models agreed on one thing: if storms formed that evening, they could become extremely dangerous. Forecasters issued a moderate risk for severe weather across western and central Kansas, warning that large hail, destructive winds, and strong tornadoes were all possible. A few hours later, Tornado Watch 227 was issued. Nearly 29,000 square miles fell under the watch area. The message was clear: conditions were favorable for powerful tornadoes. But there was one dangerous problem. The people of Kansas had heard warnings like this many times before. Kansas experiences more tornadoes than almost any other state. Watches, warnings, and sirens had become part of everyday life. Many residents believed this would simply be another storm that would pass without causing major damage. That sense of familiarity created a false feeling of safety. While families continued their evening routines, the atmosphere overhead kept becoming more unstable with every passing minute. Far to the south, near the Kansas-Oklahoma border, the first towering thunderstorms finally began exploding into the sky. Several small supercells quickly developed and started moving northeast. Meteorologists noticed something concerning. Instead of remaining isolated, several storms began merging together. The strongest cell rapidly absorbed energy from the surrounding atmosphere, growing larger and more organized with every radar scan. What started as an ordinary thunderstorm was now transforming into a monster supercell. And it was heading directly toward Greensburg. By early evening, the atmosphere over southwest Kansas had reached a breaking point. Near the Kansas-Oklahoma border, the first supercells exploded into the sky. At first, they looked like several separate storms moving across open farmland. But they weren't staying separate for long. As the storms continued moving northeast, they began merging into one powerful supercell. Every minute it absorbed more warm, unstable air, becoming larger, stronger, and far more organized than meteorologists had expected. Storm spotters soon noticed something alarming. Small funnel clouds began forming beneath the rotating storm. Moments later, brief tornadoes touched down across the open fields of southern Kansas. Fortunately, those first tornadoes were weak and short-lived. But they were sending a clear warning. The atmosphere was preparing for something much worse. Then the main tornado finally touched down in southern Kiowa County. At first, it appeared relatively small. Storm chasers watched carefully as the rotating funnel moved north across empty farmland. Within minutes, however, the tornado began growing rapidly. The circulation widened. The rotation became faster. The inflow strengthened dramatically. Experienced storm chasers immediately realized this wasn't an ordinary tornado anymore. The National Weather Service in Dodge City responded quickly. A tornado warning was issued for Kiowa and Edwards counties, giving Greensburg approximately 39 minutes before the tornado would arrive. Across town, emergency sirens suddenly echoed through the streets. Families stopped what they were doing. Some rushed into basements. Others turned on local television stations for updates. Many people still believed the storm would pass north or south of town like so many others had before. But radar was telling a very different story. Meteorologists watched as a perfectly defined hook echo appeared on Doppler radar, a classic signature of a dangerous rotating supercell capable of producing violent tornadoes. Then came another disturbing discovery. Radar indicated rotational velocities exceeding 260 miles per hour inside the storm. Forecasters knew they were looking at an exceptionally dangerous tornado. Storm spotters confirmed what the radar was showing. A large wedge tornado was now just 5 miles south of Greensburg, moving north at approximately 20 miles per hour. The tornado continued expanding with incredible speed. Every update from the field sounded more urgent than the last. Meteorologists understood that this storm was no longer simply capable of producing catastrophic damage. It was heading directly toward a town of nearly 1,400 people. Then came a decision that would save countless lives. Meteorologist Mike Umschied at the National Weather Service issued one of the rarest weather alerts ever used. A tornado emergency. The warning carried a terrifying message. A violent tornado is on a direct path for Greensburg. This is an emergency situation. These words have been used only a handful of times in American history. When local television stations repeated the warning, their tone completely changed. This was no longer routine weather coverage. This was a fight to save lives. Inside homes across Greensburg, families hurried into shelters as the roar of the approaching storm grew louder. Outside the town, the massive wedge tornado kept growing. And within minutes, it would become wider than Greensburg itself. At 9:45 p.m., the tornado reached the southern edge of Greensburg. By this point, it had grown into something almost impossible to imagine. The tornado was now 1.7 miles wide. Greensburg itself was only about 1.5 miles wide. That meant there was no safe side of town. The tornado was literally wider than the entire community it was about to strike. Then the roar arrived. Survivors later said it didn't sound like a freight train, as many tornadoes are often described. Instead, one resident explained it this way. Imagine driving down a highway at over 200 miles per hour with your head outside the window. That was the sound filling the night. A violent, non-stop roar that drowned out everything else. Seconds later, the tornado entered the heart of Greensburg. It followed Main Street almost perfectly, tearing through homes, businesses, churches, and schools without slowing down. Entire neighborhoods disappeared within moments. Buildings that had stood for generations simply collapsed beneath the incredible force of the wind. Large trees that had shaded the town for decades were stripped completely bare. Branches vanished. Leaves disappeared. Even the bark was ripped away. Some trees snapped off at their bases. Others were pulled completely out of the ground. Nothing seemed capable of resisting the storm. Then one of the town's schools took a direct hit. Delmer Day Elementary School was almost completely destroyed. Large sections of the building simply vanished beneath the tornado's power. Nearby, Greensburg High School suffered devastating damage as walls collapsed and entire portions of the structure were ripped apart. The destruction spread even farther. Kiowa County Memorial Hospital was demolished. City Hall disappeared. The courthouse collapsed. The fire station was destroyed. Nearly every important building in the town suffered catastrophic damage. Then something unbelievable happened. The town's most famous landmark, the Big Well, survived.
Although the water tower above it was destroyed, the historic hand-dug well itself remained standing beneath the wreckage. It was one of the few recognizable pieces of Greensburg left behind. Across the town, homes that had been securely anchored to their concrete foundations were swept away completely. Only empty slabs remained. The ground itself showed signs of scouring, evidence of the incredible force moving across the landscape. Vehicles were thrown hundreds of yards before crashing into piles of debris. Many were twisted beyond recognition. For several terrifying minutes, the massive tornado continued consuming everything in its path. When it finally exited the northern side of Greensburg, almost nothing had been left untouched. But the storm still wasn't finished. Instead of disappearing immediately, the tornado continued
amounts of debris after entire houses collapsed into them. Rescue workers searched house after house, hoping carefully examined every damaged building, every uprooted tree, and every destroyed neighborhood. What they discovered would become part of weather history. The damage was unlike anything they had seen since the devastating Moore, Oklahoma tornado of 1999. Yet Greensburg refused to let the tornado define its future. Instead, it transformed one of America's greatest natural disasters into one of America's greatest stories of resilience. The first EF5 tornado on the Enhanced Fujita Scale destroyed almost everything. But it couldn't destroy hope. It couldn't destroy determination. And it couldn't destroy a community that chose to rise stronger than before. Today, Greensburg stands as a